Welcome to On Scene with RCSO. I'm your host, Jameson Pettiford, and I have
Chris Chavous,
all right.
your peer wellness coordinator.
Okay, so explain what that means and what's your position here.
All right, so the peer wellness coordinator title is basically a part of the resiliency and wellness unit, and it's designed to take care of our employees, deputies, administrative personnel, doesn't matter, CID, narcotics, whatever.
Okay, so how long have you been with the Richmond County Sheriff's Office?
I'm creeping up on my 6 months.
Yeah. So how long have you been with police, law enforcement?
This is my 28th year.
Okay.
So I retired from South Carolina system. I retired with Aiken County Sheriff's Office as a lieutenant in narcotics.
Mm-hmm.
But I did 27 years total in South Carolina before I retired.
Okay. So this month is Mental Health Month. So I brought you on to talk about mental health. So first off, let's explain how important mental health may be.
So you want me to explain it, or do you want to explain it? I think you should explain it.
No.
Okay, so it's me. All right, mental health to me, and I take a lot of this from personal level,
mm-hmm.
is pretty high up there. So how academies and training instructors teach a lot of these muscle memories, teach a lot of skills and tactics to stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
The mental health is almost just as important, if not more important. Because if you're not mentally prepared to fight a battle, how are you going to be prepared to mentally deal with it after the fact?
Right.
So I think it's extremely important.
Okay. And so you say it was personal that got you into thinking about how important mental health is. So explain more about that. What's your journey? How did you get into the position you're in?
So the basis for what I do is critical incident stress management.
Mm-hmm.
And what that is, it's peer driven, it's peer based. So it's how peers take care of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I come from the background of type A personality to where, I can handle my crap as I go through it,
mm-hmm.
or as I went through it. But a peer, and it was a friend, it was a peer officer, recognized some issues that was going on after I was involved in an officer-involved shooting.
Mm-hmm.
A partner was stabbed, and I took no problem, no issue with the incident. But the aftermath of what I did to me personally, and internalizing everything and not dealing with it,
mm-hmm.
It exploded at one point. And so it was pretty rough. My wife's a police officer. We've been married, and we're coming up on 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not tell her what I was going through. I was protecting her,
mm-hmm.
That type of stuff. And she's a police officer.
Right.
So I was putting her through my traumas
mm-hmm.
without putting her through anything.
Right.
So that's the way I like to say I kind of got baptized into it somehow, because once I got some of these services through the PCIS program that this peer got me involved in.
Mm-hmm.
Doug, if you're listening, thank you, by the way. But once I got into that, I realized how much I enjoyed it,
mm-hmm.
and how much it helped me, and I wanted to help others. So I was very passionate about getting the training and learning how to pay it forward and help other officers to go through incidents like what I went through.
Okay. So would you say that most of the time, if people are dealing with some mental health problems, that usually it takes someone else to notice it before they notice it on their own?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
It's kind of case by case. Some individuals, and unfortunately in first responder business,
mm-hmm.
this ain't just law enforcement.
Right.
In the first responder business, you have a lot of type A mentalities that work these jobs. And when they do that, they're going to try to figure out how to deal with it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, our academies are better in teaching us and how to take care of our mental health.
Right.
But some of these old heads, and I call you guys old heads because you know what I'm talking about, the academies didn't teach us this crap.
Right.
So I was taught in the academy you had a 1% chance of drawing your gun on somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I was involved in 5 shootings in my career in South Carolina.
Right.
That don't add up to the stats they gave me when I went to the academy. So it's just one of those things where it was, you know, you realize there's a need for it, and it's more and more becoming an open book topic.
Right.
That officers, firefighters, paramedics, 911 telecommunicators, that they're willing to actually talk about now.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. So with there being male police officers, female police officers,
Okay.
would you say that is it one-sided or is it equal? Like, are males more quiet, I say? Are they trying to hold in their mental health or whatever they're going through? Because, you know, they say men are supposed to be so strong in everything that we do.
So I think that's like a double-edged sword, so I'm gonna give it a double response.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really identify anybody as an individual, like I see this type of person as being a weaker person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, mental health strength has nothing to do with race, sex, color, creed, religion, anything like that.
Right.
Okay?
I agree.
So it's got to do with how you were raised, your background, your exposure. You know, you can look at military that has been deployed versus military not deployed. I mean, all kinds of stuff. So there's no kind of set rules or parameters for this person will be stronger than that person. And it's case by case.
Right.
So I like to put it, and I think back to my career, you know, I started volunteer firefighting at the age of 15.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I started seeing stuff pretty young.
Right.
You know, the traumas of car wrecks and then house fires and people losing their life, you know, their lively savings and their family histories. And you just saw that trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw it pretty early on, but it never affected me because I was brought up in that business.
Right.
I say when you put a bunch of trauma into, imagine, you know, pretend there's a cup right here.
Right.
If we pour a little bit of trauma in it, we keep pouring trauma, at some point, it's going to overflow.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing applies to dealing with the business.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're working in law enforcement, you're working in fire, EMS, you can run a ton of calls and all you're doing is running a lot of little traumas.
Right.
So you're putting a lot into your toolbox that you're never, well, most people aren't unpacking. Some are these days, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have this traumatic incident happen, whether it's an officer-involved shooting or a traumatic injury or something like that, and it takes you way over the edge of overflowing.
Right. So
that's why it's important to approach each one individually and give them some tools and options and some, that's why I say I like paying it forward. I like saying, hey, look, this is where I screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe don't go the way I went and maybe try something different, you know? And a lot of times it's the smartest thing that's ever been done. And I've had a lot of officers, friends through the years that have gone through, like, shootings has been my big thing with helping officers through shootings.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of them come back to me 6 months later, a year later, like, Bo, you don't realize how much that helped me.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I was just doing what I was trained.
Right.
You know, someone did it for me. I wanted to do it for you.
Right.
And, you know, it's been, that's one of those cool things.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, mental health has been highlighted since the pandemic a couple years ago. And counseling and people going to therapy or just people trying to really be more in tune with their own mind, what they feel, you know what I'm saying, their emotions or whatever. But what do you think the most important or the first step, I should say, should be when it comes to being able to help yourself through your emotions or your mental health? Like, communication is a big thing.
I was about to say communication.
Yeah. So just speak on that. Speak on that a little bit further. What's so important about communication? What's different tactics with communicating, like writing, journaling, whatever it may be?
You're stealing my thunder, man. I'm telling you right now, you're hitting the head. I mean, hitting it nail on the head like crazy. When you look at, first off, is trusting your people.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to talk about, you know, your circle.
Right.
So having a reliable circle doesn't necessarily have to be family,
mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to be work family. I mean, it can be anybody. It can be pastors. It can be friends outside the business, or it can be your family, or it can be your shift partners, or the people in your unit or whatever, but having somebody you can trust, somebody you can talk to that doesn't hit you with judgment.
Right.
And that'll allow you to talk, or even if you need to cry. Because we don't see the most beautiful things all the time.
Right.
A lot of times we see some of the worst things that are done to humans, and it's stuff you don't want to remember.
Right.
And it does hit certain people certain ways. And, that's one thing I'll talk about. The way I teach class too is another thing I'll say is like, juvenile investigations ain't for me. And for you juvenile investigators, hats off, because that is not my cup of tea. I take it personal.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Actually.
That's one of the things you don't mess with.
Yeah.
I don't like people messing with kids. So I don't like dealing with investigations involving that. But that's personal. I know that. So I say that to say, know your limits and know how to talk to someone. Know that there's options out there, and that having conversations about your mental health is not a bad thing.
Right.
The stigma that used to be present, and there are still I like to call them dinosaurs, but there's still old heads in every agency that think that you can't talk about it.
Right.
And it's funny because you'll see those same old heads in 5 years. And there's some of this agency 5 and 6 and 10 years ago that I knew and ran into, and now they're like, dude, I'm glad you came over. They'll call me or something like that, and I'm like,
right.
This is the agency and the character of the profession moving in a positive direction. So to the individuals that are going through stuff, if it's something that's like a personal level, know that it's okay to ask for help. Know that it's okay to talk to somebody. The biggest thing about talking with counselors, there are laws and code of ethics that protect you to the levels of attorney-client or doctor-patient privilege. It is privileged communication. So you're protected, just like if you were to reach out to a peer.
Right.
There are state of South Carolina and the state of Georgia both have laws that protect the communication between a trained peer and the person that's reached out asking for help. It's protected. It is privileged communication. So those are things that y'all need to know that exist. And the other part is just like, if you are so uptight that you don't want to talk to somebody about it, communicate. He stole my thunder with the journaling part. If you write something out, journaling is not dumb, and no one ever knows about it anyway, unless you make it public.
Right.
But sit there at the end of the day or at the end of a bad event and write out your event on your paper at your house. Write it. Don't type it. Write it. Because you're physically going through the act of communicating this event. And when you do that, whether you crumple it up, throw it through the shredder, put it in the fireplace, whatever you do, you still communicated it out of your body. Right. And it helps you process it better.
It's a way of getting it out, regardless.
Yeah,
but I heard you say don't type, right?
Yeah.
So the fact of the act of you actually writing it is better than just typing it.
It's been studies. The one thing I've tried, I've done that. I've tried it both ways because, and I'm not a journaling guy.
Right.
I'm telling this on the front side. But I've been involved in a couple of shootings, and I felt better on the ones I wrote written statements versus a typed statement.
Gotcha.
Because toward the end of my career, you were typing your statement and handing it to an attorney to proof it and prep it for the investigation. So I didn't like typing it.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, I think the last one I was in, I actually hand wrote it first and then typed it.
Okay.
So that gives you a mindset.
So you learn.
Yeah.
You learn.
Okay. Yeah. I'm very open-minded, so that's why it was a little different for me.
Okay. So what are some things that you would notice, maybe if you saw somebody that was that you could tell, maybe like your peer noticed that you may have needed some help or needed to talk? What are some things that y'all pay attention to or may notice in others that you see that some people may need somebody to talk to?
Well, I mean, the little things that I would say I would want to look for is going to be the changes in behavior. You know, I mean, if someone's an outgoing personality and all of a sudden they're like trying to stay away from everybody, trying to figure out what they went through, something happened.
Okay.
Or the personal things that I like to warn people about, If you're a 2 beer a day or 2 beer every other day, or you enjoy a glass of whiskey or something like that, and now all of a sudden it's gone into 2 cases a week or 2 bottles a week, you might have a problem.
Right.
You might need to start thinking other ways out, and there's tons of resources. The cool part about how and where we live is between like Augusta, Aiken, Evans, even going as far as like Columbia and Atlanta. You've got resources here that are first responder friendly, which is phenomenal, all the way up from licensed professional counselors, social workers, psychologists, psychotherapists, therapists, whatever. They exist, and they're phenomenal. Most of them have been vetted with the state agencies as well, so they're very phenomenal interactions at the peer level too. So they're cross-trained in what your peer teams are doing. So, but watching out for stuff like excessive drinking, sleep habits is another one. If your sleep habits have changed, this is a little self-awareness part here. If not because of working shift work, but say you just went through a traumatic event, or you just went to a crappy call, or something personal happened in your life. You had a pet pass, family member passed away unexpectedly, stuff like that. If all of a sudden now you're not sleeping well, there's that might be your mind needing to help process stuff. So there's some cool tricks that are out there, some phenomenal resources specifically here. And I brag on Linda, my partner, the counselor here. She is trained in so many great things, so many great therapeutic methods that are approved and used all over the world, and many people in this agency use them. So if you feel like you can't use them, I'm like, don't be a dummy. Go over there, and you don't have to do anything. If you want to question it, go over there and talk to her about it and see what it's like. She can give you answers. You don't have to do any counseling. So these are cool things. If you don't want to talk to her and you want to talk to me about what she does, I can talk to you, but I can't do any of it. She needs to do it. So but yeah.
So do you teach any classes on mental health or anything like that? Explain some of those.
So I'm certified through the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation as an instructor. I do teach the basic peer team courses, and then I teach what they call peer para counseling. So once someone becomes an advanced peer, they can take this class, and it's kind of like a mid-level between a peer and a counselor, kind of like a life coach. So if they named it my right way, they should call it peer para coaching, because it's more like a life coach. But it's that kind of gap where a lot of times, like I said, thankfully not around here that much, but there's a lot of places around our nation to where mental health is bogged down. You hit it on the head when you said after the pandemic with COVID, mental health facilities got really, really clogged up because there was a lot of mental health issues. It still hadn't fully recovered in a lot of places. So this PPC program is set up to where peers can be trained to kind of be that holding ground to provide coaching steps to get people in a good area, a safe area, to prep them for mental health if they need to. And a lot of times they don't go past that. But that's just options that are out there. So I teach that class, and I'm also an instructor through Gypstick, and I can teach in other classes. I teach a wellness class to all our new hires. A lot of times me and Linda co-teach that class. Yeah.
So did you ever have to take any classes yourself, or like what? I know one time off camera you said something about a seminar.
Oh yeah. So it's called the Post-Critical Incident Seminar, and I think I actually talked about it at the beginning today. But that seminar, the state of Georgia holds that 4 times a year through the Office of Public Safety Support. The state of South Carolina hosts it between 4 and 6 times a year. Department of Corrections hosts it also in South Carolina several times a year. Long story short, it's a 3-day seminar, multiple resources, multiple levels of resources available for mental health and recovery. Now, the most common attendee in those things are the people who have gone through the worst of the worst type calls. your officer-involved shootings, your 911 telecommunicators taking the bad calls, your investigators going, and doing these horrific investigations, firefighters that have, worked some really bad fatal fires. It's some of that stuff. But sometimes the people that go to these events and these seminars, they might have had a child that they lost, like a personal child lost. Mm-hmm. They might have lost a loved one. It could be anything. Any kind of a traumatic event that has gave them even just the slightest of a hiccup in their life. Mm-hmm. And it's a good way and a healthy way to go through and process the event, gain knowledge. Knowledge is power.
Right.
And become a stronger individual on the other end.
Yeah. Knowledge is power. Your mind is a fragile thing, so
it is.
You have to protect it and continue to work with it and strengthen it, of course. Yep. But so this is Mental Health Awareness Month. Do they have any, like, usually for future references? I know the month is now coming to an end, mm-hmm. but future references, do they have any, like, events or anything that usually go on that y'all have to participate in or be at during Mental Health Month?
Whenever they do come up, we do jump in to try to help as many as we can. A lot of times, and we see this usually in the month of May, you have Police Week, you have Telecommunicators Week, you have EMS Week. So we always try to jump in there too. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that was by design to put it in Mental Health Month or not, but with it happening in Mental Health Month, that's when you kind of see us more involved. Mm-hmm. I would love to see that be something in the future that is bigger, mm-hmm. More approach. I think it'd be a great tool. I think it'd be a great idea. That's like September is Suicide Awareness Month.
Right.
So one of the things with Suicide Awareness Month is we like to host the class for suicide intervention, postvention, and prevention. Mm-hmm. And that's how to make sure that we take care of our own. There are suicidal thoughts in our own people. Mm-hmm. And if you are one of those people that think no one here is going to commit suicide, the thoughts are there. I promise you. This is a large agency. Somebody in this agency has had the thought of suicide today. Yeah. Unfortunate. And if you're one of those and you want to reach out, there's help. But there's classes for how to train our peers into helping people go through those thoughts and work through them and get help.
Okay. Suicide is a scary thing, man.
It is. Because I've lost 4 friends with it. Yeah, it's a horrible thing.
Yeah, it's more, I mean, I know people go through whatever they may go through on the inside, but it also, seeing someone you love mm-hmm. commit suicide bothers you as well.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a hard pill to swallow on whatever end
it is
you may come from. So
very much.
Don't hesitate to reach out. That's for sure. Because yes. I do know a couple of people that have went down that road.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, man, that's all I have today. Really, I appreciate you coming on to the podcast and talking about what you know. Enlighten some people about mental health or what you do, you know what I mean, your story, your journey, all of that. I appreciate it, man. Anytime you want to come back on, talk about some more, hopefully you help some people out there, some other officers maybe watching. I hope they don't hesitate to come reach out and get some help if they need some. Maybe they don't know.
Well, I'll add one more thing. Mm-hmm. If you're one of those officers that's interested in taking this type of training, don't have to be an officer. You can be a secretary. You can be, you could be, a civilian position of any kind. You can be any kind of sworn officer. If you can be a spouse of one of these officers or civilians or whatever in an agency. If you're interested in that training, contact me. I'd love to be able to hook you up and get you set into the next classes that we have set up. Coming up in the next few months, and let's get more people trained. The more we have trained, the more resources we have at our tips ready to get us taken care of.
So any type of connection to the agency,
yeah,
you got the right to take one of the classes.
Yes,
that's a good thing right there, because I've seen some things already.
Oh yeah.
Me being the camera guy,
oh yeah,
I've taken some pictures of some bodies or something.
That's a fact.
It don't bother me.
You don't have to be a sworn officer.
Yeah, but that's good to know, just in case something does bother me.
Well, this agency right now, we have, I want to say about a dozen people who are non-sworn civilians that is trained.
Right.
And 3 spouses.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's good to know. Well, my mom is a therapist for the Lighthouse, so first she would ask me how I'm doing always. So, she takes it pretty serious. So I'm pretty aware. But maybe I might not want to tell my mama certain things. You know what I mean?
That's
it's
right.
a thin line.
You know you're not gonna tell her everything.
Yeah, it's a thin line. So maybe
You're not gonna tell mama everything.
If I ever need some help, I might come see you.
I was telling you earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
I tell my mama the Disney version.
Right.
When I go through something, I tell her Disney. I can tell my dad stuff. I can tell my brother stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Mama gets Disney version. I know what you mean.
Yeah. There's something about the mama and the son relationship, man.
Right. That's
it's a
right.
thin line, man.
Mama's boy. There you go.
But I really do appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.
I'm glad we got to sit down and talk for Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'm glad I was able to. I learned some stuff myself.
Yeah.
So I definitely didn't know that if you had any type of attachment, that I thought it had to be sworn officers that could come talk. So now that I know that, you never know, man. I might come see you, might come ask you some questions.
Absolutely.
But make sure you like, comment, subscribe.
Oh yeah, them buttons are over here somewhere, aren't they?
Use that.
Like, comment. Oh, down here. Like, comment, subscribe.
But continue to watch new videos. I try to get videos in at least every other week, if not every week. But just make sure you continue to tune in and watch every video. Whether some of them may be entertaining, some of them may just be good information, something that you might want to know, might want to learn. But regardless, just continue to rock with us and watch us grow. All right, thank you.
Thank you for what you do. Be safe.